Welcome, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, and we have a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing and a Planning and Zoning Commission general meeting. Tonight we are having a meeting via GoToMeeting, a virtual meeting, and also Jeremy, the Planning and Zoning and I are here in Town Hall in room 213, right? 213 in Town Hall. Tonight at our public hearing, we have a continuation of an application. The general meeting, we're going to talk about a couple of existing applications or existing resolutions. The first item up is a continuation of the public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the Darien Planning and Zoning Regulations, COZR number 4-2020, business site plan application number 128B as in boy, special permit application number 314 711 Inc. at 306 Boston Post Road. I'm not going to read the rest of the thing. We're good, right?
Right.
I think this is our fifth or sixth or seventh, something like that.
Correct.
6, 7, 9 of public hearing on this application. Tonight, I think our agenda is we're going to keep going with a couple more public comment because we kind of sort of ran out of time in the last meeting. And I think I'm speaking to you, Amy, since you're the applicant. Ms. Sochins, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. It's Groundhog Day.
It is.
Here.
And then also, we were going to bring into, I guess, more evidence, the legal traffic authority report. Everyone, I think, should have gotten a chance to read that over the week. The thought was, Amy, we're going to back end that unless you want to speak about that first, or you want to go to the.
No, we're happy to have Amy Suchins for the record. We're happy to have the public complete their comment, and then I will turn it over to Jason just to go through our response to the LTA memos, and then there are just a couple of other brief response items that we have, and then as we had discussed at last week's meeting, discussion about whether there's anything else that the commission has for questions or comments, so we can prepare a final sort of closing statement and set of materials.
Fantastic. I do have a couple odd questions for you that I can throw at you after we at the appropriate time before we end.
Sure.
So with that said, I was going to do something else. Tonight is really going to be the final public hearing where we're going to really have a block of time for public comment. I don't know how many hours of public comment we've had. I think everybody that I know of really spoke probably once already. If new material comes in, yes, the public is always allowed to comment and allowed to speak again. I think we did again ask everyone that wants to speak in advance to send in either an email in or be in the chat box for Fred Donite, who is our assistant planning director. And I think we have like 5 people on the list, something like that.
Right. We received a number of emails within the past week, and we have a number of people signed up to speak tonight. But tonight will pretty much be the last night we're going to take public comment at a meeting. Certainly, as long as the hearing is open, people can keep sending letters and emails, and those become part of the record. They don't have to be reread to be in the record. Once they're emailed to our department or given to our department, they become part of the record in this matter.
Yes, and again, like I said, I missed it before, is this week we did get a number of letters and emails from people. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 emails. I appreciate that. I read them while I'm at my office, working over the weekends and before meetings. So all your comments, one came from Mr. Glassmeyer, one came from Mr. Kennedy, another one came in from Mr. Fletcher, who's a property owner next door. So all those are in the record, and all the commissioners get them, and we do read them. Thank you. So with that said, my notes tell me that Wilder Gleason, an attorney in Darien, who I think represents a few of the neighborhoods, is going to be our first speaker this evening. Wilder Gleason, I see you here, and your mic is on. If you're going first, that's great. just please say your name and record and who you represent, I guess, so to speak. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Wilder Gleason with Wilder Gleason Law, and I'm representing neighbors on Birch Road and 320 BPR holding an abutting neighbor. I would like to share my screen, and hopefully this works. Is everyone seeing it?
Yes, we do. It's a PowerPoint presentation, looks like.
Yep, I'll try and go through it quickly. I realize you've had numerous hours on this, and I appreciate everybody's indulging me for a second evening. But a lot has transpired since I last presented in November. And I just want to review, the applicant is seeking approval for basically three principal uses: a gas station, a gas service station use, a 4,000 square foot retail store, and a quick serve restaurant, which they want to make an accessory use with only 100 square feet of customer seating when 1,200 is required. And this is a 1 acre site at exit 13. And they're seeking numerous amendments to the regulations to allow the multiple uses on the site, reduce parking, etc. So since I last spoke at the 11/24 hearing, it's clear that 7-Eleven is seeking to expand significantly in Connecticut. There's 4 other applications pending in other towns, 3 other applications pending in other towns. And each of those sites are by major highways, not located in the center of a town. And the evidence, certainly that David Genovese provided from Parlor, indicates that 7-Elevens generate 4 times the traffic of a normal service station. And David, I believe, sent an email in today questioning the use of ITE data, which is based on averages, nationwide averages is the understanding. And if we're designing something and analyzing it on the basis of nationwide averages, it would seem those should be boosted when you're dealing with this site near one of the busiest highways in the Northeast, et cetera. So I think it would be really helpful if Mike Galante could address that, whether the ITE data is really appropriate for this particular site. And I'm stealing David's thunder because he indicated he had to be at another meeting tonight. And it seems appropriate that I can't ask Mike directly, but it would be appropriate for him to comment on whether the ITE data may actually understate the traffic generation at this particular site, given its location next to I-95 and the increasing use of technology, Gas Buddy, 7-Eleven's own app, etc., so that people who are traveling on the highway can instantly locate a low-price gas station nearby that's convenient to get on and off, as this site is, and whether that technically enabled gas saving is going to skew the ITE data to be very conservative. It would seem appropriate, David says, that Chickafill is one of those sites, and the Chickafill site, less than a mile from this location, has proven to have traffic on a regular basis going outside of its internal site onto a feeder road and backing up on the post road. And I see this on a regular basis myself. And I think technology enables certain locations like this, Chickafill and 7-Eleven, so that the ITE baseline Bible for traffic analysis may need to be adjusted in light of the new technology. And that's what David suggests, and I think that's a very compelling argument that Mike should be addressing. So, that despite the applicant's claim this project is designed to serve the local Darien community, the evidence strongly suggests otherwise, based upon comments made during the hearing that, oh, this is a special Darien site, and then immediately, oh, that's just a generic internal site plan. We can change that, no problem, when the chairman was questioning about whether there was visibility and whether there were false windows on the site. And it was not really a fishbowl in this design as the applicant claimed. So since the 11/24 hearing, both the applicant's traffic expert, I understand, and the town's traffic expert confirmed that the level of service in the area of the site will drop to an F. And that's the lowest CONDOT grade. You can't get lower than that. The wait times during the weekdays are going to be 211 seconds or so, and something significantly in both the morning and afternoon peaks. And there's no data for Saturday, but Saturday is likely to be worse given what's happening
Right, but it's 2 hours.
right down the street.
Oh,
So,
wow. Could be
and the LTA letter of
It's about
January
20
14,
20 cars by 2 hours.
more. Double check.
finds that there's a significant adverse traffic impacts if this project is approved. So I've already provided you with the evidence that the town plan of conservation and develop does not support the amendments that they're seeking. That the applicant, this is 752, the service business zones. And you can see in highlighted that commercial sales and service, which includes external storage activity, not what 7-Eleven qualifies as, is allowed as a principal permitted use. But commercial sales and service, meeting regular commercial sales and service or retail is allowed if you meet the requirements of 757G. And quick service residents are principal uses requiring special permits as well as automotive services. So you've got 3 principal uses on a single site, and under the regulations, that's not allowed. Because a principal use is the primary or principal use of any lot. Primary meaning first, dominant use. And the accessory uses are customary, incidental, and subordinate to not the principal uses, the principal use. The application is deficient. It asks 3 principal uses unless you adopt the amendments. And as noted in 751, you may have a regular retail use or commercial sales and service if you meet the requirements of 757G, which says that it must be a property served by public water and sewer, a minimum 3 acres in size and within 1,000 feet of the CBD. You may recall this is a 1 acre site and it's 3,000 feet, 3,500 from the CBD. It doesn't meet the requirements. Unless you approve amendments, which they haven't requested, they can't have a retail use here unless it's an incidental convenience store use that's incidental to the service station use. These are the regulations they're seeking, and frankly, when you're amending regulations, it's a legislative decision by the planning and zoning. It's not an administrative decision, which is do the regulations allow this? Do the parameters of it, the restrictions in the regulations, does the applicant meet that? When you're changing or amending the regulations, that's a legislative decision. And the Planning and Zoning Commission has very broad discretion when adopting or rejecting text changes. The only restriction really is whatever change you approve must be consistent with the plan of conservation and development. And a decision to reject the changes is virtually certain to be upheld because the plan of conservation and development says you don't need to make these changes. As we noted earlier, you should deny this because it's inconsistent with the plan of conservation. You already merged the service business and service business east regulations in August 2019, less than 2 years ago. And there's no good reason for you to revisit this and make changes for the benefit of 7-Eleven, which will clearly be a detriment to the neighbors. I don't think I know of any applications as anywhere near the public interest that this one has generated. Reiterating, you should also deny it because it's contrary to the intent of the service business regulations. It allows uses detrimental to the residential neighborhoods, which is not consistent with section 751. It's designed to serve travelers on 995, not the local community, which is again a violation of 751. The retail and commercial service use is not allowed because it doesn't meet the requirement of section 757G. Why would you change a quick service restaurant from a principal use that is required by special permit to an accessory use in a service business zone? That makes no sense. You have no obligation to allow that to occur. Don't let it happen. And the gas station use obviously needs the ZBA approval. I understand that still, they're still waiting for that. And finally, the LTA has obviously confirmed that the traffic impacts are unacceptable and you should not approve it for that reason. That concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you, Weller. Appreciate your time. The next person I have on my list is Mike Cipoletti.
Mike Cipoletti.
Cipoletti, I'm sorry, Mike. Is Mr. Cipoletti here?
I don't see him. We'll go to the next person and come back, I guess.
Okay. The next person after Mr. Cipoletti is Louisa Spear, and then just on deck would be either Mr. Genovese, David Genovese, I think he had a conflict, or Terry Bach, I think it's one of those two. Mrs. Spear, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Great, we received your letter also that you submitted recently too.
Thank you. This is Luisa Spear, for the record, 23 Pond Lane, Darien. Again, Mr. Albani, we want to state our appreciation for your diligence and patience throughout these hearings. In the letter we sent yesterday to the various commissions, boards, and fire chief, we raised our objections and concerns to the 7-Eleven application, out of which the following are the most relevant. We ask our authorities to consider by their own calculation how many vehicles will be fueled at the proposed 7-Eleven location per week if the 2 storage tanks have a combined capacity of 40,000 gallons and are expected by the applicant representative's own estimation to necessitate 2 to 4 fuel deliveries per week. We stated that we stand by our opinion that 7-Eleven has not been forthcoming on the marketing effectiveness of their various apps that will attract high traffic, touting their cheaper fuel prices, rewards programs, delivery options, and freebies, reason why the data was omitted on their traffic reports. We pointed out that the contradictions found between the applicant representative's first statement indicating that it is unlikely that the business would be advertised via signage to motorists on Interstate 95, and the most recent zoning boards of appeals agenda that includes a 24.1 total square feet of additional 7-Eleven raise the roof signage on a secondary northeast side facing the Connecticut Turnpike where none is permitted. Furthermore, we indicated that we know that the 7-Eleven project does not aim to help our community. It is a business decision to benefit their bottom line and ultimately and effectively create an optional rest stop for I-95 in detriment to our town. We ask our town authorities to help us understand why this application could ever benefit Darien, as we fail to identify a single positive outcome of this project, and ask them as community gatekeepers to deny this ill-suited petition and live up to the Darien Plan Conservation and Development and the planning and zoning rules recently updated to protect our safety, property values, and small town character. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Louisa. I appreciate the comments and the kind words. Ms. Spear, I'm sorry. Is Mr. Cipoletti here? No? Okay, David Genovese was speaking at the library.
Yeah, he's probably not done. So
Terry.
Mr. Bach will, I guess, speak on his behalf.
Mr. Bach, are you available to speak?
I am. So yeah, David Genovese was, concerned he wouldn't make it in the period of time. I don't know if you've got other business or other speakers. I think he said he'd be here probably by 8:30, or he's provided me a copy of his comments, which I can read. Do you guys have a preference?
Well, we have his letter in the record. That's the one that talks about 7-Eleven getting a partnership with Sunoco. Is that right?
Among others, yeah.
Right. And then he talks about that you guys couldn't get a traffic consultant because nobody would go against 7-Eleven, that one?
Correct.
Do you want to, I mean, there's not that much stuff to talk about tonight other than the general public, and then Ms. Suchin, so the applicant's going to make some comments, and I'm sure we might have a few questions from Mr. Galante. It's up to you. I mean, if David shows up soon, we can fit him in.
Like I said, I think he's in ETA. He mentioned he thought he'd be here by 8:30, but like I said, he provided me a copy to read if you prefer that. So whatever you guys would like to do.
Why don't we wait for David?
We'll wait for David.
Why don't you wait for him until 8:30?
For the public, and when we see him pop in, we can ask if he wants to supplement this. It is in the record already.
I prefer him to speak for himself than for me to speak for him anyway. So that's great.
Yeah, there's no reason for you to read his letter that's in the record. We already have it. Everybody else has it.
Okay.
Okay. You want Michael Galante to say anything at this point, or just go right to?
I think he's available if anyone has any questions.
Mr. Galante, who is our traffic consultant. There was a couple of people that have asked a question relative to this ITE issue and the app and the local traffic accounts. I mean, you blatantly, you went over it. I think it's blatantly, I didn't mean to. You went over it in your document, say, you would rather have them do counts, but at the end of the day, you were okay. You were satisfied with it. I forget what the exact comment was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we accept these, something like that.
Yeah, well, I can summarize a little bit. Mike Galante, Hardesty and Hanover, consultant to the town. For this application, we have prepared a peer review. We've submitted, I guess, 3 or 4 letters. We've reviewed a couple different documents, and certainly have attended many of these meetings, including zoning board of appeals and the legal traffic authority, which is the police commission. And that's one of the letters that's in the file that we may talk about tonight or may not. But while Gleason made a couple of comments, I'll just touch on those. And I think this is probably a comment that a few people may have. One is in reference to the ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, better known as ITE. There's a document called Trip Generation Handbook. And us traffic engineers, including CONDOT and others, use this book to estimate traffic for different types of lane uses. This document is not just in Connecticut, but it's in all 50 states and beyond that, actually. I wouldn't say a traffic engineer is obligated to use it, but that's a document that's used to estimate traffic. If I was to come in and say, well, I think this gas station is going to generate X trips, the first question would be, well, why would you have a number that's not the same as ITE? The ITE is based on national standards, national gas stations around the country, and traffic engineers collect this data, submit it to ITE, and is tabulated to develop trip rates, average rates, and so on for different types of lane uses, including a gas station, a convenience store, a combination of the both, and this is the information that's used. I do know that CONDOT would not say, well, because this is next to I-95 at an interchange, that you should increase those trip rates by, any percentage. So they don't do that. I can't come in tonight and say, well, because it's near 95, I think it should be increased by 25% or 30% or whatever. I don't have, there's nothing I can base that on. Some people have mentioned the apps that different restaurants, fast food, gas stations may have, and I assume 7-Eleven has one. I've never used it, but I don't know how that would generate more traffic. I would assume it can, but I don't have information to say, well, these numbers that were used in this traffic report by the applicant should be increased by some percentage because they have an app. And some people have said, well, how come IT and traffic engineers are not keeping up with that? That's research that's conducted on a national level. It's again based on studies that are conducted by traffic engineers at different organizations or different land use, 7-Eleven, or people mention Chick-fil-A. I don't have that information, and IT has not published that information that can be used. I do know, and I know I've mentioned this before, CONDOT requires traffic engineers to use a different level of site traffic for Dunkin' Donuts, and not in the book. I don't know of any other land use where they require us traffic engineers to use something different. There was another comment, and I think Wilder Gleason mentioned it tonight, and it was also mentioned at the last meeting. The applicant should have analyzed a Saturday condition. Well, I agree. I mean, that was one of our first comments, and there's only one reason why it was not included in this analysis. In this pandemic, there was no need, or it wasn't appropriate to go out and do new traffic counts and not be able to match it to other traffic data that was collected before the pandemic hit almost a year ago, last March, and make those adjustments. But just the analyses that the applicant provided for a weekday morning and a weekday afternoon, and we certainly reviewed it, and the conclusions are that this development, as it's proposed, has a significant impact, in my opinion, on the driveway traffic conditions and delays. And I think a big concern that I've mentioned before is the delays at the exit 13 southbound off ramp to Boston Post Road, and the left turn to go southbound towards town. So if we use a Saturday analysis, I would assume the volumes are higher on Boston Post Road, and certainly Connecticut Avenue in Norwalk to the east or north, depending how you look at it. In site traffic, the applicant said last week the volumes were actually lower. Regardless, you probably would have similar delays or maybe greater delays for a Saturday analysis. So while we don't have a Saturday analysis, I think the weekday afternoon analysis results provided in the applicant's report and our review of that data shows that this has, significant delays because of this site traffic. So while it would be great to have a Saturday analysis, and we always do Saturday analyses for this type of use, there's only one reason why it wasn't done, and we didn't ask for it, was because there was no Saturday data available for this section of Boston Post Road that it could be matched to from something before last March of 2020. So that's why the Saturday data is not in this report. It was discussed early on by us. We've had discussions with the applicant's traffic consultant and with the town itself, and that's the reason why it's not in there. So those are some of the highlights of some of the comments that I heard. Well, Wilder Gleason mentioned tonight, and was certainly mentioned, I think, at the last meeting, and I can certainly answer other comments as they come up tonight as needed. So I'll just limit it to that for the moment.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for you, Mike, if you don't mind.
No, all right.
I'm looking at your letter from January 12th, page 2. It's probably in the middle of the page. It says it was based upon the ITE study published in 2017, right? So I'm kind of guessing that if it's published in 2017, the data is probably from 2016.
It's data collected over a period of time. It wouldn't be just for the year before. The document that you're referring to that's published in 2017 probably came out in early 2017. I don't remember exactly when it came out. I think it's actually from the end of 2017. IT, just so you know, comes out with a new publication every 3 or 4 years. So they're probably due for another publication in the next year or two at most. And the applicant's traffic consultant can certainly add to that if he knows anything better. But it's based on new data in the most recent book, and there have been some supplements to that more recently. It provides new data as it comes through the process, and it's used by DOTs in every state, counties, towns, and so on, and traffic engineers. That's the data we use. So will it be updated for this type of land use in the next publication? It's possible. I tried to find out, but I couldn't get any answers. Someone that works with ITE that actually used to be in my office. Because
where I'm going with that is I mean, I have an iPhone just like probably half the world or half the town, but I'm not really an apps guy. I don't know about, I'm probably the only one that I know that doesn't have Waze. But
I don't have it. I don't have it.
Yeah, all right, that's two of us. Good, you and I together. But I don't. My point is that I think this whole app thing really took off in 2019. now it's even more in 2020 because of the pandemic, because that's to get people there. So that's, I think, where the disconnect is, where if the ITE study that was published in 2017 is really from 16-15 data, maybe earlier, and apps weren't really invented or took off until 2019, 2020, they're never going to make it into your data. I think that's where the disconnect is.
Yeah, and that's a reasonable assumption at this point. It's not data that, my office, we're not using it to modify estimates for traffic for different types of land uses that may happen to have. We just haven't done that, but we haven't seen the research to give us that information that we can apply to anything. Will we be
Right,
doing
yeah.
it next year? Possible. I don't know yet.
Yeah, because I'm looking 2 paragraphs down. It said it would have been better in this year letter to conduct traffic counts at the Dutchess driveway to obtain actual traffic distribution. But then you go on, because of the pandemic, that the ITE estimates were good enough. And then the report noted that are above or acceptable to complete this analysis. So I get it. You're kind of stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
Because you have to go with something. And we've relied on the ITE data on applications that I've seen for the last 15 years, supplemented with the actual counts where you put the rubber hose in the street and whatnot. But
Well, it's not rubber hoses in this case. It would have been actual turn movement counts. And one of the reasons why we thought a Saturday count or any count would have been helpful at the driveway was to get that distribution. Who's turning right and left into that driveway, who's turning right and left out of that driveway. Even though the volumes are probably lower at the Dutchess restaurant lately, it would have been a good basis to kind of go through the process of the traffic report.
got it. Then the other one I wanted just to touch on again, because I read it one more time. And Amy, I did say that you turned on your microphone on for a second, but on page 3, at the bottom, it says site traffic distribution and assignment. It was a previous comment, but what it talks about is you assume because you're allowed to make a left, that some people will go left and some people will go right and make the U-turn. Is that what you were kind of saying?
That was the applicant's comment, and that's how they analyzed the site traffic exiting the site. They assumed, someone that may want to go westbound or southbound on Route 1, Boston Post Road, some would make a left turn out of the driveway, others would choose to make a right, and let's call it a U-turn at the exit 13 off ramp and go back in front of the site to travel past the site to downtown or the center of town. That was an assumption the applicant made.
And do you agree with that or don't agree with that?
Well, the reason why that was, and I can't speak for I'd rather have the traffic engineer respond on it a little bit more, but the reasoning behind that was if someone was not able to make that left turn because of a delay, that person may make a right turn and then find it easier to make a U-turn at the off ramp and come back.
Right, which is that a lot of people say that, and you can't get out of my street going left, so you say, forget it, I'll just go right and make a U-turn.
And that was the thinking on their part.
That
I'm
was
sure.
the assumption that the applicant's traffic consultant did.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And then with regards to the question about the weekends, the police department in their letter, and I don't mean to skip around that much, but
That's
the
okay.
police department in their letter, it said, additionally, there was no institute for the data on the Saturday impacts.
It's really no baseline or actual counts on Boston Post Road. IT does have information for Saturday condition.
Right, but then these guys, the police commission or the LTA go on to, it's not hyperbole to firsthand. It's not hyperbole to state that if 7-Eleven project is constructed and submitted and is approved, a portion of the road, there will certainly see some type of traffic congestion during the weekdays and on Saturdays. And I'm paraphrasing. Did they, what's the proper word? Did they, ask you a lot of questions about Saturdays also?
I don't remember the exact questions, but I certainly answered questions. We chatted for probably at least an hour. That
Okay.
particular, late afternoon actually. Yeah, there was some discussion about Saturday. There was a discussion about really every aspect of this application as it relates to traffic and traffic safety. Saturday comments and discussion was included in that, yes.
Okay, so those are really my highlights. Does any other commissioner have any questions for Mr. Galante or Amy Sochin? Do you have any questions for Mr. Galante?
No, I think some of the comments and questions that you've raised were things that Jason was also going to clarify as part of his presentation. So I just wanted to, well, number one, let you know that, so we can certainly go back to his presentation. In the interim, I also noticed that Mr. Genovese joined. So if you want to go back to public comment, or if you want to stay on the traffic issues, it's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think we'll give Michael a break for a minute and let Mr. Genovese talk.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. David Genovese, we received a letter from you. I think I got it today. I got it today. I read it today.
It's dated February 1st, 10:21 p.m.
Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, I got it today. He was up at 10:30 at night. We actually, sir, we had you on the list to be a speaker for tonight. And Mr. Bach was going to speak in Europe, but since you're here, and if you want to speak and supplement the letter that you sent in last night, you're more than welcome to.
Great, thank you so much, Chairman Mulvaney. I wanted to just read it to you.
You got to state your name for the record, sir.
Oh, sure. David Genovese, resident of Darien and active real estate developer. So basically, I wanted to bring a few things to your attention, and I had a couple of questions for Mr. Galante and for the applicant's traffic engineer. Repeatedly, the attorney for 7-Eleven has made note of the fact that the neighbors who have spoken or submitted testimonial are not traffic engineers, nor have they hired a traffic engineer. I think that the Planning and Zoning Commission for Darien needs to know that the neighbors have worked hard to try to find a traffic engineer to represent them, to study the situation and to provide comments at these hearings, but they could not find a traffic consultant willing to speak against an application by 7-Eleven. I personally called upon two very reputable traffic engineering firms with whom I've worked on several real estate projects over the last 20 years, and neither of them would take on this oppositional work in Darien against 7-Eleven. Given this fact, the neighbors and I did not have a choice but to do the analysis ourselves and present our findings for the consideration by the P&Z Commission. In both cases, I should add, the consultants stated that they understand our legitimate concerns about this application, given the proposed use, the size of the facility and its location, coupled with the existing traffic conditions and the existing rating by the DOT and the physical constraints of the access ways to the site. Each of the firms said to us that their unwillingness to work with us had nothing to do with their view of the application, but rather they do not do oppositional work as a matter of corporate policy, and they would not want to go out against 7-Eleven. I would like to ask the P&Z Commission and Mike Galante to confirm our understanding that the ITE manual traffic projections are based upon national averages. I'm confident that any reasonable person would agree that this location is very different than an average location, given its proximity and access to I-95, adjacent to one of the most traveled sections of that highway in the United States. I would also like to understand why neither 7-Eleven nor Mr. Galante, nor the traffic advisor to 7-Eleven has really commented upon the difference that could result in traffic generated by this site given the use of technology, Waze advertising, 7-Eleven's own app, Gas Buddy, etc. And those technologies' ability to pull people off of I-95 in search of lower priced gas. As I've described this situation with the neighbors, this potential location, given its location next to the exit or entrance to I-95, coupled with the technology platforms available to 7-Eleven, is what I would call a tech-infused, app-enabled gas and convenience store marketing machine. And I do not see how a reasonable person would not conclude that the ITE results would likely be very, very misleading in an analysis of the traffic potential of this location if used by 7-Eleven. In this specific case, I believe that the technology is moving very quickly, and the traffic engineers are not keeping up with its potential impact on their projections. It's the same for even, the Shake Shack or Chick-fil-A. When we put these ideas forward, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all of these different ideas did not exist. And they're not, I know for a fact that those are not considered by the ITE manuals, at least not yet, because their impact is too new and evolving. A case which I think would be interesting to study is the Chick-fil-A in Norwalk. How is that location performing relative to the national averages reported by ITE for a fast food restaurant with a drive-through? I would be willing to bet a lot that it's generating substantially more traffic than the ITE manual referenced in its application predicted. And based upon my professional experience, it seems reasonable to predict that the proposed 7-Eleven would perform in a similar manner as compared to the ITE manual projections. I met the other day with a local gas station owner who informed me that in connection with 7-Eleven's purchase of the Sunoco gas station convenience store business, or much of it, they entered into a long-term gas purchase agreement with Sunoco that provides them with cheaper gas over an extended period of time. I think it's 15 years. I confirmed this important detail by researching the transaction between Sunoco and 7-Eleven. And this agreement will enable 7-Eleven to undercut much of the competition, both local dairy and gas station retailers and the I-95 service stations in terms of gas pricing. With this ability, again, coupled with the technology, this location will be reasonably expected to perform at an above average level. I respectfully urge the Commission to reject this application. As my fellow town resident, Pamela Kiernan, aptly stated, the benefits of this application seem to accrue overwhelmingly to 7-Eleven, while most, if not all, of the costs are likely to be borne by the neighbors of the site and Darien in general. In my view, based upon my considerable experience in analyzing the impact of real estate developments and new retail stores, I think the risks are too great here to approve this application. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Genovese. I appreciate that. Okay, good. Amy, I'd like to go back to you, if you don't mind. I think you said that Jason from McMahon and Associates might be available.
He is, and I'm just scanning the screen. Yes, and he was going to address a couple of the issues, as I said, that you raised, Mr. Chairman, and then also that were raised with respect, by multiple people with respect to the app. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Great. Good evening. For the record, Jason Adams with McMahon Associates. Is it possible for me to share my screen?
Fred, he'll give it to you.
Great.
One moment, Jason.
Hold on here. All right. Can see my screen here.
Yes, we can.
Yep, we
Great.
sure can. Thank you.
I want to speak to the Darien Local Traffic Authority. I know there are obviously some differences of opinion here, but I think it's important for us to take you through some of the numbers again, just to try to emphasize where we are with our report and our understanding of the numbers associated with the site. I know there's been a lot of discussion already tonight about the use of Institute of Transportation Engineers. I thought Mr. Galante did a very nice job of explaining how that publication works. And I would say in general, I am in agreement with how he represented that data. Overall, we do not feel as though the project is projected to create a significant level of traffic at the area roadways and intersections. And I'm going to take you through a couple of those numbers in later slides here. Another point raised in that LTA letter was that the project would cause significant queuing at both exit 13 southbound ramp and the exit 13 southbound extension area. We also don't agree with that statement in the LTA letter. I should note, and it's been brought up before in meetings here, that Connecticut has recently done roadway work in that area. Typically, when the state undertakes a roadway project, they complete a study, a safety evaluation, an analysis evaluation. They recently made upgrades to the traffic signal that is part of this interchange. They recently added in the crosswalk that has been discussed between Birch Road and the project site. So Connecticut DOT has been looking at this interchange in general and recently, and that work was completed just last summer. And our project analysis shows queues increasing 1 to 2 vehicles on those movements during peak hours. So the idea that the project, the 7-Eleven project, would cause significant queuing issues, I don't feel is a fair representation of the impacts of this project.
Jason, can I interrupt 1 second?
Sure.
The reason I'm asking, I apologize, is I saw that same note too in their letter. When they say at both exit 13 southbound ramp, are they talking about the exit ramp? Talking about the exit ramp, right?
I believe that they're talking about the exit ramp, the 2 stop controlled movements. So there's the stop controlled movement before crossing Boston Post Road. And then I take their exit 13 southbound extension area to be where the left turn would be made, as if you were coming off of the southbound ramp to turn left towards the site in the center of Darien.
Okay, because
That's how I interpreted.
Yeah, when someone says a southbound ramp, I was thinking you would get on southbound, but I looked at it as that's where exit 13, if it's going to queue, it's going to be coming off the interstate onto at exit 13, and then go into those 2 stop signs. Okay.
Yes,
that
is my interpretation.
Yeah, me too. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. And the LTA also brought up that Saturday data was not included from the Institute of Transportation Engineers. I presented some of that information at the last hearing. I have that information again in a slightly different format for you tonight. But the long and short of it is that there are fewer additional trips to the project site during the Saturday than AM or PM. So it's not to dismiss Saturday, just to say that the impact that the 7-Eleven would have in terms of vehicle trips is there are fewer vehicle trips added during Saturday, and that's directly related to the Duchess, the existing Duchess being busier on Saturday than it is during other times of the week. To take you through a couple volumes here, the LTA talks about the number of additional trips entering and exiting the site. To be clear, what our data shows, and this has been reviewed with your traffic engineer, 71 new additional entering vehicles. This is over the course of the AM peak hour, so the 60-minute peak hour. 71 new additional entering vehicles. That's 88 total. So that includes the pass-by trip. And happy to go through that again, but I know it's a little bit complicated. The pass-by trips are already on the roadway, so it would be a vehicle that was already passing by this site that would turn into the site. So it's counted at the driveway, but it's not new to the roadway system.
Where's that again? Because I'm looking at their paragraph. It said, according to Mr. Aconti's review, the subproject would generate 177 and 149 new vehicle trips.
Correct, and I'm trying to break that down so that the 177 is the 88 plus 89. So
where's that?
So looking at that is the second and third bullets of this slide.
Great. I'm looking at Galante's letter.
The 177 is 88 entering vehicles and 89 exiting vehicles. So it's not, and this is, I think, an important point to make. It's not 177 new vehicles. It's 177 vehicle trips. So a vehicle trip is either an entering movement or an exiting movement. So that 177 is 88 entering and 89 exiting.
Got it.
Right, and some of those vehicle trips are pass-by trips, so it's not a new vehicle to the roadway. That vehicle is already on Boston Post Road today. They're just now turning into the 7-Eleven.
Are those numbers in your existing report dated New Year's Eve?
Yes.
Do you know what page it's on?
Let me see. I'll tough to figure this out sharing my screen. There's a trip generation table.
There's a million numbers and I try to follow them and I'm a charts guy myself.
Let me see.
It's 7-Eleven, it's Amy Suchins for the record. 7-Eleven weekday morning trip distribution is figure 11
Figure out.
in the McMahon
Yeah,
report.
there's
You know
a
what
there's a
page-
table on page 11 if you want to look at that. It's up on my screen right now. I can zoom in
Got
a
it.
little bit.
Okay,
Here, so this is page 11 of the New Year's Eve. You can see here table 4, 88 in, 89 out, and that's the 177 being referred to in the LTA.
okay.
And then similarly on the PM 72 in, 77 out, and that's the 149 in the LTA. And I did really want to just talk through this, that it is not 177 cars turn in and 177 cars turn out. It's 177 vehicle trips, which is an entering or exiting movement.
So that's in a 1 hour period? That's not a 2 hour period, it's a peak hour?
That is a 1 hour, the peak hour, yes.
Okay, so if I take 88 and divide it by 60 minutes, that means I'm getting more than 1 car per minute.
Correct. So it's just over one vehicle per minute that enters and 1 vehicle per minute that exits. And then that vehicle would either take a left or a right. So again, it's not as if every minute a vehicle goes, to the north and east, and every minute a vehicle goes towards town. That's
Right, yeah,
it's 1 vehicle every minute exits the site towards one of those 2 directions.
okay. And then I want to ask you to see if we can skip for a second. How does that relate to the LTA's report when it's talking about 121 seconds and 212 seconds? Is that
Right. So
with the wait time, you have to wait to get out of the property?
to get out, and I should know, I mean, there's a couple factors that go into that. So that is the calculated delay within our analysis. So once we
That's
have,
correct. These guys are correct in what they said.
yes, that's what our analysis says. And I do want to make a point that we were trying to be, throughout this process, as accurate as we can be, number one, and we were trying to be conservative in the sense of how we distribute the vehicle trips. So all of our conversations with Mr. Galante, with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, we always try to build in a layer of being conservative. We don't want to present a best case scenario, if you will. So I would say that represents more towards a worst case scenario than a best case scenario. And a big factor in that is the number of vehicles that actually turn left out of this site versus turning right. So during a peak period at the busiest time of day, vehicles are much more likely to turn right out of a use like a gas station than they are to turn left, simply because they wouldn't want to wait with that much delay. I think everybody can agree that you're looking to minimize the delay you experience. Our report, the distribution that we agreed to in order to present an accurate and conservative distribution, has about 66% of the vehicles exiting the site turn right, and the other 34% turn left. But we did a count. Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. So that's number 3 on Galante's letter, where some people that really want to go left are going to turn right and do the U-turn.
That is part of it, but also my argument, and we looked at the BP gas station, same side of the road, a little bit further towards town, just to understand. We did a count out there to look at the trip distribution of that site. It's another gas station. It would be expected to have a similar distribution. At that gas station, 76% of the peak hour trips turned right, exited that site via a right turn instead of a left. So we have more left turns percentage-wise at our site than I would actually expect. But again, I'm not trying to present a best case scenario for 7-Eleven. My job from 7-Eleven's perspective is to evaluate this site and to help them to understand if this site is going to create impacts on their site and impacts to the surrounding roadway network, because that's what we are doing as a traffic engineer in this role. So I'm not presenting the best case scenario to 7-Eleven. I'm trying to present an accurate, conservative view of this. And I actually think that the left turn percentage is higher, and it's higher than the BP just down the street than I would expect. But again, I wanted to present it in a fair way, and that is the methodology that led to the delay reported in the LTA letter and within our traffic impact study.
But so then how do those two numbers jive? Because I'm taking, is it 89? I'm taking 60, I think it's 62 people leaving. Is that right? 62 people leaving in the afternoon peak hour, right? So that's just a little over 1 a minute, or it's 1 per minute, but it takes you 3 minutes and 54 seconds to get out. So how's that possible?
Well, this is the total number of vehicles. So not all of these vehicles experience that delay. The right turn movement is a much lower delay. They're only reporting the delay experienced by the left turning movement. The right turning movement is much lower.
So I'm just trying to make sure I'm reading this right. I'm a math guy, so if one guy goes in, one guy goes out. To be honest with you, I went to Chick-fil-A the other day. I couldn't get in, so I said forget it, and I went to Chipotle instead. You know, because the line was too long, but because you couldn't get in. But the weekday PM peak hour new trips is 62. Is that, reading this right?
This is, and
I'm looking at table 4.
Table 4. Yeah, that's the number of additional new trips, but let me see if I can show this a little bit easier for you.
Because you get what I'm saying? It's simple math.
Yep,
77 divided by 30 seconds. It's one a minute. It's an hour. The 77 is over an hour. So that's 77 divided by 60 minutes, right? I'm on my HP 12C, but we can play 77 divided by 60.
Yeah, so here are the full numbers on my screen here. This is figure 14.
Because you're the traffic engineer, and the legal traffic authority is saying it takes 3.54 minutes to get out there in peak hours.
So there are our numbers are showing 43 left turns exiting during the afternoon peak that you're discussing, and I think that this is a little bit, and feel free to ask Mr. Galante the same. The analysis that we use is a software system. It does present a conservative review of unsignalized traffic operations. So again, the numbers presented in the study, I personally consider to be conservative, as in I do not expect that the average vehicle is going to wait 3 minutes to exit this 7-Eleven.
I don't want conservative or aggressive or best case. I just want one number. If what I'm reading is correct, to me, it's physically impossible. And it doesn't talk. Neither of these table 4 doesn't talk about lefts or right, and the 212.1 seconds doesn't talk about left or right. So I don't care if it's left or right. I'm trying. It's one in, one out. It's a parking lot, right? So if one's going in every minute and it takes you 3.5 minutes to get out, it doesn't work. If I'm wrong, tell me.
I think that there's still a disconnect between the data and the way you're interpreting it. So I'll try to walk you through it. Can you see my screen? I have figure 14 up. This is the traffic volumes in our report. reviewed by Mr. Galante.
Yep.
43 left turning vehicles.
What page you think, what figure is that? What figure is
This
that?
is figure 14.
Figure 14, okay. Let me get through it. Figure 14, I got it, I'm ready.
Yep. So 43 left turning vehicles exiting the site during that peak hour.
43 lefts, yep, yep, I got it.
Okay. That 43, again, agreed upon, is 34% of the exiting movements are left turn movements. So
It's 43 plus 100 is 143, right?
yep, correct.
And where's 143 on these other letters? Because we were just talking about 177 a second ago.
The 177 was AM. I can show you the 143. It's actually we have a table on the bottom of this figure 4. The table is actually on the bottom of figure 12.
Was the apples. If you go, it's, I don't care what you pick, AM or PM.
Yeah, we can stay with PM. So PM, if you go up to figure 12, you can see how the 143 is constructed between new trips and pass-by trips. Did you want to look at it within the tables that we were looking at earlier?
It's whatever you're trying to explain it to me. I can't get over it takes you a minute to get in and out in 34 seconds. So it's one.
Mr. O'Laney.
Yeah.
Well, Jason's looking for the right table as a quasi layman in this. I think the question that you're looking for is probably easiest visually in table 5 in Jason's report. It's page 24 of 27. And what he's trying to show you in the numbers is what the actual delay is. So that table 5 has the information. And like I said, when I read through a traffic report, this is what I turn to sort of see some of the numbers. If you see in that combined 2022 column for the weekday afternoon, that 212.7 seconds that the LTA pointed out and Jason's trying to explain is, as you see, the left turn movement. If you are making a right turn, and Jason can confirm, but in round numbers, 60+% of the trips out are making a right turn. It only takes them 21 seconds. So you have 60% of the traffic only taking 20 seconds to get out. And Jason, I think you said 34% of the traffic taking
Correct.
up to the 212 seconds to get out. So that's why you have the back and forth, you can wind up with more cars moving because, as Jason said at the beginning, not all of those movements are left turns waiting that 212 seconds. The vast majority are only taking 20 seconds.
Right, but that goes back to Michael Galante's fact that because you can't make a left, then it takes too long. You're gonna man up taking a right and doing a U-turn, which is a bad movement anyway.
Which is why we are advocating for, as you see, this is the column for separate lanes. Our recommendation is that left be maintained and there be a separate lane for the left turn, separate lane for the right turn. And what both Mr. Galante and Mr. Adams have said is that ultimately that determination of whether it's a separate lane or a shared lane is the decision of the DOT. We can take the position that we want, but ultimately the DOT in the encroachment permit process is going to make that determination. So the reason for the separate lanes is to ensure that that right turn movement continues to be low and allow people to function. And if that left is delayed, then somebody might decide to take a right instead.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Sure. You guys know
just-
more about this than I do.
That's okay. Just keep in mind in this analysis, I'll agree with Mr. Adams that the model is conservative. It gives you a longer delay than you may actually see out in the field. But the other part of this puzzle is this is an exit drive whether it's one lane or two lanes, there's really not much stacking to serve these lanes coming out to Boston Post Road. You're stacking within the gas station.
Right.
So your cars that are exiting most likely will be in one lane. And if there's a 2-lane exit, they may split the 2 lanes as they get to the last 25, 30 feet or 40 feet at most to line up and make a right or a left. So even though the guy making a right turn has a much shorter delay based on the model, which is true, they're going to be blocked by left turn vehicles at some point in that gas station, and that queuing is going to back up towards the gas pumps, and that has to be factored into this whole mix of the analysis and the model and the program that we use. And the other part, just with the traffic being added to the driveway, the comment was that a pass-by trip is already on Boston Post Road. That's correct, but that patron today not going to a gas station because it's not there is a through movement. 7-Eleven opens up, and I'm the guy that's driving straight through to go towards the center of town. I now decide to go buy gas at 7-Eleven. I now become a left turn movement. A left turn movement is a conflict. It's not a straight through movement. So that's added to the mix of the modeling and the analysis of that intersection. There's a lot that goes into this, but the bottom line is, and I've highlighted, and I think the LTA is correct, it's a very busy intersection at the driveway in the future. There will be delays. You can measure it any way you want, whether it's one lane or 2 lanes, but there's going to be delays coming out of that driveway that will certainly affect the internal operations of the gas station, and it'll indirectly affect Boston Post Road in front of the site. However you calculate it, it's adding traffic to the roadway system at that driveway.
Right, you've been talking about the queuing system internally of the site since day one.
Yes.
Okay. That's I'm in the same spot. I mean, I got stuck in the post office the other day, and I got stuck so bad somebody hit me in the back.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason, I apologize for cutting you off. I'm really just trying to understand it.
Right, and yes, I'm hoping to help you understand. And there are a lot of numbers. It is a very complicated system, and at the risk of further clouding things, if you can see my screen, I'm on table 5 that Attorney Suchins was referring to.
Yep.
There's, if you look at the combined 2022 section that's all the way on the right, we were looking at the driveway. We were talking about the 212.7 seconds. The number to the right of that, the 0.88, is what's called the volume to capacity ratio. And this is what dictates to me that the driveway will be able to serve the vehicles exiting the site. The capacity of a movement is considered to be 1. So you have a certain level of capacity, and this is a ratio relative to that capacity. So if this volume to capacity ratio is under 1, it means that there's more capacity available than there are vehicles on the movement. And so what this ultimately says is that over the course of the hour, these vehicles will be able to exit the project site. There will be delay. There will be delay to the vehicles, as there are with any left turn on a busy road. But because this volume to capacity ratio is under 1, and fairly significantly under 1, and 0.88 seems close to 1, but anything that's under 0.95 or 0.9 typically is cleanly going to be below capacity, which means that it has the ability to serve those vehicles and allow those vehicles to enter Boston Post Road over the course of the time that the vehicles are there. So we're looking at over the course of the hour. We just talked about there being 43 vehicles. Those 43 vehicles are going to be able to come out onto Boston Post Road over the course of that hour. Now you could look at the average delay as 212 seconds. To me, that is a conservative value. I would not expect that average delay is going to be 212 seconds. But even if that was a minute or a minute and a half, it does show that over the course of an hour, those 43 vehicles are going to be able to come out. And I think in terms of trying to calculate that, the math that you were trying to do, there can be multiple cars waiting concurrently. So if I'm in car 1 and you're immediately behind me in car 2, we could be waiting the same 60 seconds. So it's not like my 60 seconds starts and then your 60 seconds starts, and therefore it takes us 2 full minutes to each have 60 seconds. We could have that concurrently. And that is what happens when you have a queue. You have a 2-car queue or a 3-car queue. Those vehicles can build up the same delay at the same time. And obviously that second car or that third car experiences more delay than that first car does. And so this is an average of all of that. But as Attorney Suchins pointed out, vehicles turning right, much less delay, significantly less delay. And because of that, my expectation and my experience with uses of this sort is that more vehicles are going to turn right. Whether they're going to seek to ultimately make the U-turn movement to head back to town, or they're just going to be the vehicles that are going to the north and east. I'm not exactly sure, but I do expect that there will be more vehicles that turn right than even our analysis shows. And therefore, this delay would actually be less because there's going to be fewer vehicles turning left than what our report says during those peak times.
Okay, thank you. So everyone that's turning right is not going to Darien, they're going towards Norwalk.
Well, some of them towards Norwalk. Some of them could get back onto 95. A couple of them could turn around, via that U-turn movement to head back towards Darien. They may just choose to do it via a right turn.
Great, okay. Commissioners, I'm sorry, Amy, do you have anything to add to this? I know there's a lot here.
No, I think Jason wasn't quite done with his presentation though.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No problem.
That's okay.
Sorry.
So we talked about PM, just to go and look at Saturday. We have advanced the number set. This is following the same methodology. Mr. Galante has not seen these specific numbers, so I don't say that he can verify these for you. I don't think that's a fair position to put him in. But I will tell you that these have been formulated using the same methodology that the rest of the report was done using. So this is Saturday peak hour. We'd be looking at 25 new additional entering vehicles and 30 new additional exiting vehicles. And that equates, as we were talking about earlier, it's about 1 new vehicle every 2 minutes entering during the peak hour and 1 new vehicle every 2 minutes exiting during the peak hour. So again, just to reemphasize that Saturday, while it is a busy time, the additional vehicle trips associated with this 7-Eleven would be fewer than they would during the AM and PM peak hours. And that's kind of the point that I just wanted to make here for the board, just knowing it's been a point of discussion over the last meeting or so. I did take the time, and I know I don't want to go into any more detail than you need us to, but I did take the time to go through and reformat the numbers associated with our project, so that, and we were doing this kind of movement by movement during the last meeting. I wanted, if the board cares, in particular you, Mr. Chairman, if you want to go through this. I believe that there was a lot of confusion about the additional trips associated with the 7-Eleven and the percentage increase as a result of those trips. And this lends to our position that the project does not significantly increase traffic at the surrounding intersections. On this slide here, looking at the movements coming off of 95 in the top right section, the 7-Eleven would result, according to our study, in an additional 18 vehicles over the course of the weekday morning peak hour. So that is a vehicle every 3 minutes that comes off of 95 as an additional vehicle trip going towards this 7-Eleven. Similar look at the Birch Road intersection. We've talked about this number before. 4 additional vehicle trips coming off of Birch Road heading to 7-Eleven. And just as important, I think it is to note the vehicle trips on Boston Post Road. 25 additional vehicle trips on Boston Post Road, which is about a 3% increase heading towards town 24 additional vehicle trips heading away from town, heading towards the site on Boston Post Road. That's about a 5% increase. So I just wanted to put some scale to the vehicle trips that this project is adding to the surrounding roadway network. Once you distribute them to the right and to the left, once you distribute them onto 95 or not onto 95, onto Birch Road or not onto Birch Road, this number subset shows the percent increases as well as those trip increases. And it's not any kind of 100% increase or 100 additional trips. You're talking relatively low numbers on the order of, on Boston Post Road, again, a vehicle every 2 minutes in each direction away from the site. A vehicle every 3 minutes coming off of 95, a vehicle every 3 minutes getting back onto 95. Like that's the scale of numbers that we're looking at in the weekday morning peak hour. And similarly, in the weekday afternoon peak hour, just skip ahead here. It's a very similar story. Again, looking at the movement coming off of 95, 14 additional vehicle trips associated with this 7-Eleven. That's a vehicle every 4 minutes or so coming off of 95 that would be coming to the 7-Eleven as a result of the project. On Boston Post Road, heading towards downtown Darien, about 22 additional vehicles. That's about a 3% increase to the roadway. We talked last week about 3 additional vehicle trips coming from Birch Road, 3 additional vehicle trips going to Birch Road, and on Boston Post Road going from the center towards the site, about 20 additional vehicle trips. It's about a 2% increase to that movement. So again, just a relative scale of vehicles being added to the roadway network in which we do not feel this is a significant increase in traffic to these roadways and intersections. I'm happy to pause there if you have questions about this.
No, I just don't want to be weird and get my face like right up against the screen because I can't really see it. We're like,
Fair.
what's the guy doing? But I mean, I get you. I mean, you're saying 18 cars are going to come off I-95 and go to your gas station.
18 additional, right? Yes.
Right. So you only get, we could have huge signs that say 7-Eleven here and an app, and you're saying you're only going to be 18 cars off I-95.
Well, again, there's a portion of vehicle trips that come off of I-95 right now and go to Dutchess.
I got it. No, I got it.
So it's 18 beyond what is already coming to this particular project site. So and some of those might be the same car that would come off either way, and some of those are going to be a different car. You know, a car that would have come to Dutchess doesn't, a car that would have passed the exit comes off and goes to 7-Eleven. So just to be clear, it's 18 additional vehicles.
So are you converting those Dutchess patrons to 7-Eleven patrons? But you're getting 2 different things.
Right. So not specifically converting them, just in terms of a numeric value. The vehicle that travels to Dutchess is assigned to our network. We are doing our best to understand where that vehicle came from or where that vehicle is going to, and we're doing the same for the 7-Eleven.
Great. And then the Birch Road people, you can have a big sign that says 7-Eleven here, and you're only going to get 4 or 5 new cars turning left out of Birch Road to go to your 7-Eleven.
So this again, it's new in addition to, and that doesn't include a pass by trip. So someone that's already coming off of Birch Road that is turning and would go to 7-Eleven as a pass by trip, they'd be considered a pass by trip, or someone that comes off Birch Road that would be going to the Dutchess. That is a trip that's already going to the site as well.
Right.
So these are in addition to.
So someone that's going off of Birch Road in the afternoon to get a chicken sandwich, there's 10 of those guys, and you're going to get 5 more guys that are going to go to 7-Eleven and get a chicken sandwich. So you're going to have 15 people.
Yeah, similar methodology, not necessarily that high of a number, but we, should the project get approved, we'd certainly welcome customers from Birch Road.
One of the commissioners lives on Birch Road. Okay, I got you. Anything else?
Just one more slide, and this has kind of already been touched on, but and I just wanted to emphasize it from my point of view, that we engineers, we follow a standard methodology to complete these studies. So, and the trip generation methodology that we have followed is a methodology approved by the Connecticut DOT, and as Mr. Galante said earlier tonight, has been approved by him. It's not saying that everything is perfect. I can't be on this and say that number is exactly right. Like that's not my role. My role is to follow a methodology to give you the board and the public, to give 7-Eleven the best understanding as I can based on the methodology available, the data available. And just to be very clear, there is no accepted way to calculate traffic variations due to app-based technology. And while I understand that certain companies have apps and that the data that we're using may be slightly dated, it's the best data we have. And I don't think that apps in and of themselves are creating more trips to gas stations as a whole. And the data set that we look at includes all types of gas stations, including 7-Eleven gas stations. So they are in this data set as well. It's all types of gas stations, and we solve for the gas station and convenience store. We're not solving specific to one end user. The data doesn't allow us to do that. The data is for this land use, and we feel it has been applied appropriately and in the best manner possible, and therefore feel that the numbers that have resulted in that are as accurate as can be, given what we have to use. And I'm not able, just as Mr. Galante stated, I'm not able to say there should be a certain increase or a certain decrease. It works both ways. There may be certain sites that don't appeal to someone, and I can't decrease that number just because I feel like that might be true. So we have to stay true to the data set and the numbers that are available to us. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
A couple points, if you don't mind. One, relative to the apps, I mean, and I read, the news all the time and whatnot. There was a thing that came out by Shake Shack like this week that said their app is brought everyone back to their store because of the pandemic, and they were shut down and whatnot. And it wasn't for their app, they're going to, would have had a worse time. Most recently, they sent out a prototype. It's called the Shake Shack Racetrack, which instead of having, we have a Shake Shack at Darien, there is no drive-through. Now, because of people with the app and getting out of the car and ordering in advance, they're going to have dual drive-throughs, which is similar to Chick-fil-A. So these guys in real time, they like their apps. So that's my only point on that. With regards to Mr. Galante's letter, I think his final, and he can say what he wants, he can agree with me or not. On page 3 is his final sentence, and if you agree with it, you agree with it. If you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it. It's in his sentence. I'm just going to read it. It says, in our opinion, and referencing the steps to bring it to a net increase in site traffic, that this is a significant increase in site traffic for the site, with a more intense use of not only a convenience store, but a 12 vehicle fueling position gas station. Do you agree with that? I think you just said it's not going to be a significant increase.
I agree that it is a more intense use. Yep,
Okay.
I agree it's a more intense use. That we fully expect that there will be more vehicle trips to this site than exists today on the Duchess. So fully agree with that statement. I do not agree that it is a significant increase, and specifically don't agree that it's a significant increase to the surrounding roadway network, to the intersections around that was included in the LTA letter. They reference significant increase to the roadway network and intersections. There is an increase because of this project. There is an increase at the site driveway, but I don't feel as though it's significant.
All right, so you don't agree with Galante. He's got significant in his middle of his sentence underlined. So you say it's going to be an increase. He said it's going to be significant. So you don't agree with him.
Correct.
Okay. All right, Michael, you don't agree to. All right. Then the next thing, if I can switch the LTA letter, I just made a couple different points. It's the police department, and I guess I'll call them the police commissioner or whatever. I'll call them the LTA. Their preview identified 2 areas most negatively impacted by their proposed development. One is the site driveway, and 2 is the 2 closely spaced intersections at Interstate 95 southbound exit and the post road. So the site driveway to me is that there's only one driveway going in and out of this thing. There's 3 lanes, I think is where we are. There's 2 lanes out and 1 lane in. So that's where the reroute will add significant level of traffic and roadways. That to me goes back to, I asked you the other day, how many convenience stores you think you did over your career with only 1 driveway?
Right.
And you said, I think somewhere between 5 and 10. So these guys say it's a bad impact. Do you agree with them or not agree with them?
Specifically, I mean, they I think the wording that you just quoted, and just so that I can answer your question as directly, you said the areas most impacted are the site driveway and the exit 13. Is that the question that you're asking?
Yeah, the peer review identified the two areas most negatively impacted by the proposed development to be 1, and I'm adding the 1, the site driveway, and then 2, the 2 closely spaced intersections at Interstate 95 southbound exit off ramp, which we talked about a second ago, and the post road. So
I would agree that those are the 2 areas most impacted. Yes.
Okay. Most negatively impacted.
Right. I mean, it stands to reason that with the increase of vehicle trips at the site driveway, that it is most negatively impacted. I mean, the vehicles exiting the Duchess today experience less delay than we would project for 7-Eleven in the future. So in that sense, it is a negative impact to that movement, but it is contained within the 7-Eleven site.
Okay. And then towards the end, they go on again to 2 other points. It says at the end, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. Mr. Gallagher, based on the data supplied by the applicant that the traffic in the area off Interstate 95 exit 13 southbound and the post road would become untenable during weekday morning and weekday afternoon peaks. Untenable is a pretty strong word.
It is, and I wasn't part of the conversations that may have taken place between Mr. Galante and the LTA, but I do not agree that the data shows, nor do I agree personally that this project would result in that movement becoming untenable.
Okay.
But those words are from the police commission, actually.
Understood. Yeah, 100% understand. It's them writing it. But at the end of the day, you know, these guys weigh in, and Darien LTA is not in favor of this project's approval solely from the traffic perspective as submitted. That's their final conclusion.
Well,
You know?
Mr. Chairman, could I just inquire about that?
Of course you can.
Well, I
That
just
is-
want to highlight that the full sentence says, it is the professional opinion of Mr. Galante, based on the data supplied, the traffic in the area of off I-95 exit 13 southbound and the post road would become untenable during weekday morning and weekday afternoons, peak times. So that's not the police commission stating its own opinion. I believe it's stating Mr. Galante's opinion.
Just saying that not my words, that's all. I did acknowledge that there was a significant impact and delays at that intersection in the driveway. It's just not my exact words, that's all.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's Jason and Jason, I'm just trying to get over their closing sentence and Mr. Galante's closing sentence. Those are, you know, and you explained your report as best you could, and I tried to understand it best I can, and Amy helped as best as she could too. I didn't really focus on table 5. I kind of get it. I mean, I didn't really know what the 0.88 was. I get it now.
Sure.
But, you know, that stuff to me is important. But right next in that document, next to the 212.7 seconds, that's where the F comes in, right?
Correct. The F is related to the average delay. Yes, the seconds. Yep.
And the what's LOS stand for again?
Level of service. That's what the F is. It's a graded scale from A to F.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, one more comment. Just on table 5, it does not include the vehicle queuing. In other words, the length of the queue. That's part of the modeling also, and that's something we also looked at. That's part of our concern.
Right, that you've been saying
Not
that's
summarized in
something.
the table, but certainly included in the traffic study, in their traffic study.
Okay. So queuing, do you talk about queuing much, Jason?
We do include it in the appendix of our study, and we did review it with our project team in order to feel comfortable with the site layout. So we have reviewed that. The queuing on that left turn lane, we would expect to see a 2 to 3 car queue on that left turn lane, and about a 1 car queue on that right turn lane, which we feel the site can accommodate.
Okay, so, but on this table 5 again, I'm reading your report. You have 2 Fs in terms of getting out of the project. Is that right? The week and afternoon peak? Actually, it's always.
Correct. The exiting, the left turn exiting is graded as a level service F. Yes. Similar to the Duchess. The Duchess in the weekday afternoon is also in a level service F.
It is, okay. Right, so and then so your weekday morning left is an F and your weekday afternoon left is an F.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
But both are under capacity. The VC ratio, the volume to capacity ratio, is both
Right.
under 1.
Right, that's the 0.88 and the 0.68.
Correct.
Got it. Which means how many parking spaces do we have here again? I can't read this stuff. My eyes are shut. Okay. Does any?
24.
I'm sorry, Amy.
24.
24. So we were talking about 40. That's what I thought, because there's 48 cars or 40 some cars going in and out. That means every parking space turns over once in that peak time.
Nobody parks at the pump and then leaves.
Okay. Does any other commissioners have any comments on this whole discussion? Jim, Larry? I mean, I beat my head against the ground. Jen, where's Jen? I don't see Jen Lee.
Here she is.
Where she is. Jen, any questions? Oh, you're no.
No.
Okay. She said no.
Sorry,
Larry?
sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. No, I'm good.
Okay, I see you, Jen. Sorry.
Everyone, good time.
You moved when the screen when changed.
Steve, I don't have any additional questions. I was following along.
Thanks, Larry.
Mr. Chairman, the list of people, did you have to be on the list in order to have the opportunity to comment from the public, or are you still open to public comment?
Yeah, no, we'll take public comment. The list is never closed. I mean, we're just trying to move things along. I just want to make sure all the commissioners already spoke. Amy, you're okay. We heard everything from Jason. We heard everything from Michael. We talked about the LTA. I have a couple of things I'm going to ask Amy towards the end. But if Sir
And I have a couple of comments too for before we close or conclude, not close, conclude.
I wish we could close. Mr. Smith,
Getting
would you speak, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you. What's your name for the record and your address, please?
My name is David Smith. I live at 26 Birch Road.
Thank you.
Going back to the comments that Mr. Genovese made about the challenges that the neighborhood had in finding a traffic consultant willing to take on the project. Clearly, that's a function of the economics around working for applicants as opposed to neighborhood groups. But it certainly is not a function of our willingness to pay market rates for traffic consultants. One of the things that we've done in our efforts to put a finger on a traffic consultant is to reach out more broadly to potential sources. Finally, this morning, I spoke to a professor of traffic engineering at NYU and briefly discussed our need to find someone. I think ultimately that will be successful. But in the brief conversation we had where I was describing the challenge that we were up against, some of the comments that Mr. Genovese made about tech-enabled, app-infused marketing monsters were repeated by the traffic professor, who said that the ITE methodology of determining traffic congestion issues is a dinosaur, quote unquote. You can take that for what it is. You know, certainly the people that have done this work for a living are relying on now, as you have yourself pointed out, seriously dated technology and seriously dated data in order to, in their words, create an accurate and conservative view. But if it doesn't take into account data about people coming off the highway, it does not take data into account about the app and tech-driven part of this. It's clearly questionable. The truth is that when it comes to traffic, you are not required to rely on traffic engineers and the ITE. You are allowed to take notice of the facts on the ground and your own knowledge as to the impact that this traffic would have on the neighboring community. Every single one of those left-hand turns coming out of this site will prevent a left-hand turn from coming out of Birch. Because by the time the person's done waiting however many minutes it is at the F level of service, they're going to be moving quickly to get into the traffic gap that finally appeared. And if they don't hit somebody and our police have to come, they'll probably hit the mom who's also in a hurry to get her kids to nursery school. You guys are allowed to notice all of the faces on the wall, all the work that we've put in front of you, and the personal observations that you can make as citizens of this community and as taxpayers by visiting and looking and studying yourself. And all of that information has as much legal weight and as much credibility as the dinosaur does. That's my first point. The second point is that if we are going to rely on this type of work to make decisions, we are, I believe, duty bound to rely on the input of the people that we've hired to protect our town. And the Legal Traffic Authority, as we've just concluded, has recommended against this project. You have all of the information you need to reject this proposal. And you're allowed to use your judgment in doing that as much as, or more than, if you should so choose, all of this engineering stuff. And the engineers themselves that are currently coming out of school don't rely on IT when they're doing their advisory projects. And that, sir, and commissioners, is a fact. We will find, if we ever get to, you know, if the opportunity arises to hire one of these people, we'll do it. But we probably won't have to, because as Mr. Gleason pointed out, this project doesn't get past square one because it's not allowed under the town's regulations. I'd recommend that you stop there and say this project simply isn't permitted. There's no reason to make this project an exception to the rules. The rules are there for a reason. They were established carefully over a long period of time. They're published. They're easy to follow. I take that back. They're not easy to follow. You guys have actually got a very hard job to do. It's complicated. You have the lawyers look at it. You got to study it. You got to think about it. It's difficult. That's why applicants hire lawyers too. they can read the rules. The rules are there for a reason. They weren't made up overnight. They were as a result of a long, tedious, careful, thoughtful process by lots and lots of citizens over a long period of time, and responsible people have abided by them. There's no basis to justify changing the rules for a questionable project. And you are allowed under the law to recognize what you want to recognize in making these decisions. I encourage you to do that. Do the right thing. Thank you. Obviously, the applicant gets the last word, but you know, we're still here, and we'll be watching. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you, sir. One note, Amy, just make sure we're on the same page, and so other people know too. We're still waiting for the ZBA report. I'm told the ZBA report, they're meeting the 10th. Is that right?
Yes, they're meeting February 10th. They may have a report ready by March 10th. There's no way to know. So certainly we've talked about the possibility of at the next hearing, whenever that is for planning and zoning, allowing the applicant, just what Mr. Smith said, the applicant will get the last word, the closing statement, whatever it's going to be called at the next meeting. I know Amy's got some comments tonight, and then we're going to set aside one more meeting, which would allow her to wrap everything up, so to speak.
Okay. So that's kind of the track to run. So Amy, I said you're on the same plan, right, Amy? Ms. Suchin?
Yes, that's our understanding too, that, you know, we were going to try and conclude the public comment portion. So, and frankly, any other commission questions or issues that we should address in preparing a, you know, closing remark. And, you know, we've had a number of comments, both, you know, from the board, or excuse me, from the commission. We had some from the ZBA. There were still some additional ones that were raised in Mr. Galante's report and some of the public comments. So we're just trying to, frankly, synthesize everything and have that so we can put a final, you know, conclusion together and be able to do that at the next meeting, because we knew that there were, and as you've heard, there were more comments that were brought up today. So we obviously want the ability to review all of those and respond comprehensively.
Thank you. Can I ask you two general questions?
Yes.
They're general but specific. Relative to the floor plan, we talked about the floor plan last week and the windows. Have you guys ever thought about moving the back of the house to the same side as the loading dock so you can get windows on the front that are operable? Has that ever come up in your team's discussion at all? Because in my Cumberland Farms that I go to up in Rhode Island, they have windows on at least two sides, and yours just has windows on the one side. See what I'm saying?
Yes, understood. We can certainly talk about that. We have not had that specific. I'm not privy to all of the internal Cumberland 7-Eleven conversations. I've been in Cumberland Farms, like you've mentioned, where there's different layouts. I've been in other convenience stores with different layouts as well. But I think the challenge that we have is not only there's that portion of back of house, but there's also refrigeration. You know, the coolers need to be somewhere. So, but we can. I'll double check internally and see if there was anything else.
Because that was discussed, because it seems to me you have a back of the house on both sides of the building, and those two sides don't have windows, and you know you have the blacked out windows on the front. The other top of mind comment, and it kind of relates to a letter that was sent in by Mr. Fletcher. Last Thursday, General Motors announced that they're going to stop making, they're only going to make electric cars by 2035. Did you see that news report?
I did not personally.
Okay.
But I believe I've heard things similar.
You guys are going to have 6 pumps and 12 hoses, but there's no electrical charging stations. That just seems, if the whole world is going to electric cars, And you
There's
guys.
not gonna be traffic.
What's that?
Said, well, clearly we're not gonna have much traffic then.
Yeah, I know, that's the problem. I'm like, it's,
But we certainly, that was one of the comments that we received in Mr. Fletcher's letter this morning. It's one of the things that, frankly, we're evaluating.
yeah, I mean, does 7-Eleven, do they have electric charging stations in any of their other convenience stores, do you know?
I don't know if they have them in other parts of the country. I can tell you, I don't think most of the stations that I've been to, regardless of brand around here, have them. I generally see them in spaces, locations that have longer term parking, office buildings. There's some here at the mall in Milford and the mall in Trumbull both have EV stations. They're where people might park for multiple hours, not for the rest areas, obviously.
Right, yeah, there's Teslas at the rest areas on 95. I just, when
Yep.
I saw,
I saw several of them at the mall here the other day.
oh, okay, I just
So we're looking at that.
I just heard the news article on Thursday and then saw Mr. Fletcher's letter. I figured I'd ask a question. Did one of your team want to make a comment on that?
Hi, this is Dorothy Fleischman from 7-Eleven. Currently, we are testing charging stations throughout the country. There's, as you can imagine, a whole bunch of different kinds of sites and layouts and charging stations available. So it is very much an active part of our testing program. I would imagine that at some point, gas stations will, as a matter of course, have charging stations. You know, I know that as the batteries improve, almost probably weekly, the charge time becomes less and less. In the past, that's been the big hurdle in that you couldn't really get a full charge in anything less than an extended period of time. So office buildings and hotels and that sort of place were really well suited, but we are actively involved in looking at that also.
Okay, thank you, because I just, if this is like your state of the artist news, latest and greatest model, and they do change every probably 3 or 5 or 2 years.
Yeah, we're always asking which sites are conducive to it, and sites are constantly being evaluated for that. So it's very much on our radar.
Okay, thank you. Those are my 2 questions for tonight. I don't think I have much more. I think all the commissioners are good. I think we heard everybody from the public, right?
Hi, this is Michael Kennedy. I just had, if I may ask for a moment of your time.
Sure, we got your letter again from last
Thank you.
Thursday. Go ahead,
Right,
Mr.
this is just based on the comments. I was reading an interesting article.
Make sure you have to say your name and address to the record.
Oh, sorry, apologies. Michael Kennedy, Royal Road.
Yep.
So just a quick observation that we've been talking about the gas station component. One really interesting article I read was comments from Joe DePinto about what is Raise the Roost and how it offers craveable food and generous portions at prices you'll find below most fried chicken establishments. So the article I have, and I'll send you it later, seems to indicate there is a direct comparison, or perhaps if 7-Eleven isn't running electric pumps or electric charging stations, they'll be competing with Chick-fil-A. So that's one thing to consider is what their brand will evolve to from not just the gas station, but also the direct competition from what we know to be a very busy business model and clearly profitable.
Yeah, there's that argument, who's got the best chicken sandwich, is it Chick-fil-A or somebody else? I forget who it is.
7-Eleven.
Popeyes.
The
No, it's
CEO,
Popeyes.
the CEO of 7-Eleven says they do.
There you go. Thank you,
And
sir.
Fresh made. And then the last comment I wanted to make, and I'll just leave it open for Mr. Galante, is about that 88% rating. I just wanted to point it out there that, is that considered to be a safe rating, or is that unsafe in terms of the volume of traffic exiting at that intersection?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's safe or unsafe, but that's okay. Michael doesn't want to read. All right, so Amy, with that said, we're gonna suspend this hearing until
continue the hearing unless there's something else. Amy has something.
I have
one more thing.
2 minutes.
Of course, sure.
I
I'm
just
sorry.
want to address 2 issues that came up tonight. One reiterating, and one just reminding the commission of its jurisdiction. The first one in Attorney Gleason's presentation, and it came up in the comments that Attorney Maslin had submitted in his materials last week. There was this discussion about the argument that we have 3 principal uses: the gasoline station, the automotive service under your regs, the quick service restaurant, and the commercial sales and service / retail component. Our application materials are very clear. We said it in the hearing, one of the hearings before the holidays, but I will make it clear for everyone again. We have applied under your regulations as a automobile service as the principal use, with the quick service restaurant and commercial sales / retail as accessory uses. That's how the proposed amendment to the regulation is worded. And what we had said before the holidays is that a number of the other stores, gas stations in the area that have retail and food service, mobile station across the street. I think the Shell over on Norotan Avenue, a number of the other sites have a condition of approval that the gas station, or the convenience store or food sales cannot operate without the fuel sales. We reiterate that we would abide by a similar condition, that this could not be operated as just a 7-Eleven convenience store without the fuel. It is the fuel that is driving the, that would serve as the principal use here, and you can see that in our application materials. And then the other point I wanted to reiterate for the commission, because I think frankly we haven't gotten into it in a lot of the comments over the course of the last, call it 6 to 8 weeks or so from the public, have really focused on that, which is that as a planning and zoning commission, your jurisdiction is over the use of the land. It is not over the user of the land. So the reason that this is important is because what you are doing, and there is case law dating back 60 plus years in Connecticut for this principle, that what you are evaluating is the underlying use. The Connecticut Supreme Court a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago, in the context of a subdivision and special permit case, actually talked about, although the phrase use of land is not defined in the zoning statutes, and the court said, this is the quote, "It has traditionally been understood to refer to the type of activity that is allowed at a particular site, such as residential, educational, religious, industrial, retail, or mining." So the use that we are talking about here is what I just outlined: the automotive service use, as well as the accessory commercial sales and service and quick service restaurant. The user or the owner is the 7-Eleven component here. So all of the comments that you have received with respect to a direct focus on 7-Eleven are frankly irrelevant to your jurisdiction. You are regulating the use. You are regulating whether this is, with respect to a gas station, with respect to a quick service restaurant, with respect to commercial sales and service. And again, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, you're fine.
Sorry, no, I heard a couple, there were multiple voices, so I think it might have just been a mic. But so again, the Connecticut Supreme Court, it dates back, one of the early cases was 1956. So Connecticut Appellate Court, as recently as a couple of months ago, reiterated this principle. It's well established that the zoning power can be exercised only to regulate land use and is not concerned with ownership. And the colloquial referred to in many of the, the 2 seminal land use treaties in Connecticut is that you regulate the use, not the user. And so the discussion about the 7-Eleven app, the success of a different model store that 7-Eleven has in other parts of the country, the references to corporate transactions as far as other gas distribution or other that is acquired, frankly, other locations for which 7-Eleven is seeking land use approvals anywhere here in Connecticut or anywhere else are all outside your jurisdiction. You are not tasked with evaluating the nature of the user here. And I think it's particularly true given that there have been, frankly, some very specious public comments about the the clientele of 7-Eleven. And, you know, much of the comment has been focused on very 7-Eleven specific concerns. And so ultimately, your task is not to decide whether 7-Eleven itself is a right fit for Darien, but rather to determine whether or not the gas station use is appropriate with the accessory uses here on this site. We are not the first to consider a gas station on this site. Frankly, we were just the first ones to bring it to fruition. In some of the early conversations that our team had with the landlord, and frankly, in some of my early conversations with your staff, there had been other gas stations who had been interested in looking at this site. And it's perfectly possible. It's what 7-Eleven is doing in Danbury. They purchased something that was approved as a Cumberland Farms, made modest site modifications, and moved forward with that. So as I said, your task is to look at this from a gas station and accessory use provision, not from a 7-Eleven. And I think that's important for you to think about going into the deliberations, to be able to evaluate how much of the public comment you've heard is truly 7-Eleven specific versus overall comments about you know, the operations or use of the site as a gas station. So with that, we will be, if there are any other questions we have from the commission, we'd be happy to hear them. But otherwise, we will plan to compile our, you know, concluding remarks for the next meeting at which we and you are available.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what we're gonna do. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that comment.
Yeah.
With regard to the thing, it comes in immediately. 11th. We get the 6th, the 10th, or the 11th, and our next meeting's on the 16th. Do they have enough? They have enough time to review it?
Well, that's really, you know, as we've mentioned at previous meetings, planning and zoning commissions under state statute only have a sufficient time to leave hearings open. With the governor's executive order due to COVID, that's been extended. So we are, even with the extension, we're running out of time in March. So what we had talked about is the Zoning Board of Appeals meets next week. It's likely they'll close their hearing. It's likely they'll get a decision and a vote on their report March 10th. If we can have a special meeting Tuesday, March 16th, which would then allow the Planning and Zoning Commission to receive that report at your meeting of the 16th. Amy and her team would make their concluding statements, and that would wrap it up in terms of the hearing process for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. So my only concern is really, it relates back to Amy. If regardless, Amy, if you got a report on the 11th from ZBA, do you have enough time to meet with us on the 16th?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the ZBA's issues, and we have some legal issues we need to work through on everything and procedure. But we certainly know we've had two substantive lengthy hearings in front of ZBA on, frankly, it was Mr. Galante and Mr. Adams giving a very similar presentation to what you've heard in front of the ZBA. So I think much of their discussion is focused on traffic. So I think we're in a good position to be able to, if we should conclude at next week's meeting, but certainly if not, we still would have their meeting in March, and at that point, I think we know where their heads are at.
Okay, because I just, the reason why I asked that is like you got the LTA report on the 26th, which is the day of our meeting, and then we took a week sabbatical to review it. But I'm looking at my calendar, if you get that on, if they meet on the 10th and you get it on the 11th or 12th, then you're with us on Tuesday the 16th. If that's good by you.
Yeah, and actually, the ZBA issue was the same thing, that the LTA report had not come out at the time of our ZBA hearing. So we hadn't seen that, they hadn't seen it, and I wanted the opportunity for our team to be able to review it and respond to any comments or questions that the ZBA might have, just like we did with you.
Okay, cool. So
with that, the P&Z would, if the commission wants, it would be a special meeting night, Tuesday, March 16th at 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
And it would be a special night, special meeting, and basically the 7-Eleven item would be on the agenda, and it would be with the intent of the applicant to give their closing remarks on this matter.
So that's not on here. So you're going to make that special meeting with town clerk tomorrow, and then if it gets canceled, it gets canceled.
We would file it as it gets a little closer.
Okay, that's fine.
For the simple reason that with the special meeting agenda, you can't modify it.
Great. Okay, that's fine.
So certainly, if that's what everyone agrees to, we would continue the public hearing on this matter to Tuesday, March 16th, 7:30 p.m. It'll be online like it is tonight. And that would.
Okay, and that special meeting will hit the town clerk's docket someplace in March, but it's not going to be tomorrow.
It'll probably get filed. Usually the agendas get filed the Thursday before.
Okay. And because the special meeting, you just file the agenda and the special meeting the same day.
No, you can't file it the same day. But the agenda will be filed the Thursday before March 16th.
Okay, got it. All right, so we're on the same page, Amy. You got all that?
We did. We are.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so for everyone else in the world, our next meeting on this application is going to be March 16th at 7:30 in this room and on this internet GoToMeeting back channel, I guess I call it. All righty, thank you.
If I can have one moment of non-applicant hat, in my role as a member of the Connecticut Bar Association Planning and Zoning section, the annual seminar for land use commissioners and staff is Saturday, March 6th. It's virtual. I would encourage everyone to attend and tell any friends that you might have. We usually get north of 400 people, and it's a very comprehensive seminar, so I'd encourage everyone to attend.
We're already signed up, right?
All the commission members are signed up, and
yeah, we already paid our $40 fee.
Okay, great.
40 times 60, you got us for $240 if my math is right. Plus, I think some of the ZBA people and EPC people.
Yeah, and we'll get a nice good book and a lot of good topics.
And you will get the book in hard copy. It'll be FedExed out. Despite the virtual setting, you will still get the hard copy book.
So you get a certificate of completion at the end?
I'm sure we could create one if you want one.
Thank you. That'd be great. I hang them on my wall. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, next item up for bid. That concludes our public hearing for tonight. Now we're going to go into the general meeting, time permitting. We got time. It was only 2 hours, right? We started late, didn't we?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, general meeting, commissioners. Deliberation, possible decision on the following. Subdivision application number 628, estate of Charles E. Bradley Jr., 31 Indian Springs Trail. Okay. And with that, we have a draft resolution, which I can find it. I had it a minute ago. No, I got something someplace. Here it is. I got it. Got it for. I got it. Draft resolution. Got it. Okay, sorry about that. If you guys remember, this is the site that's the end of a cul-de-sac. It's effectively a cul-de-sac. It's 5.17 acres. It's subdividing into a 3.11 acre lot and a 2.06 acre lot with room to fit a pool in. Question, comments, Scribner's errors, typos, anything that jumps off the page? I read, and it was all clean to me. As both surveys. I'm not muted, right?
Jennifer. George says good. Jennifer, good. Larry,
Okay.
good.
Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve as submitted.
Motion to approve is submitted.
Thank you, Jennifer Leahy. Looking for a second? Larry Warble, you're in the middle. Thank you. All those in favor? Fantastic. That's good. Okay. Next item on the agenda is deliberations only for special permit application number 317 ELD Street Properties LLC, 1049 Boston Post Road. We were waiting to have all 6 commissioners here. I don't know if, I know Kara Gately was going to be late if she made it at all. She's not here. Would you guys mind if we punt this to next time? We have all 6? And can we punt it to the 16th? Or there's another date, right?
We could try next week, which would
fine.
be
That's fine.
February 9th, and if we don't have time, we'll kick it to the 16th.
Okay.
Great.
Wait,
Okay.
16th? We're not meeting on the 16th?
We just added the 16th. Remember, were you paying attention?
No, it's February. You're right, Jennifer. We did not have a meeting scheduled for February 15th.
Yeah.
But I will not be here on the 16th, so I'm just, yeah.
Is anyone else unable to make February 16th?
I don't have it's the school vacation week, so I'm trying very much not to be available. I haven't found anything yet
with my children.
but
Okay.
yes, but there's it's a strong likelihood we won't be around because it's school
great.
vacation.
We'll meet the 16th then. We'll rearrange our schedule here.
Okay. They're still having school vacation, Jen?
Yeah, I'm going to Puerto Rico.
Oh, I was gonna say you're going to Cabo. Damn.
No,
I knew it was
no,
the
I'm
end
out
of
of the
the-
country.
We'll put it on for next week then. And,
PCR tests for all.
There you go. All right, so that got punted.
okay, so no meeting on the 16th. We'll rearrange that.
Yeah,
We'll work on something.
you sent an email about that. I didn't respond. I was supposed to.
Okay. No quorum. Okay.
Kara Gately, I bet she's not around too. Okay, next item on the agenda, approval of minutes from January 12th. We got a draft copy of the minutes, January 12th. The first item on here was the Beach Drive public hearing that we listened to. That was Mike. Yeah, that was Mike Murray. We talked about the Indian Trail. We talked about 32 pasture and 34 pasture. Right, and we talked about the house at Berry Lane. Nothing jumped off the page to me, plus then there's a resolution from David Geneviese's stuff, where it was tenants. I didn't really catch anything, nothing jumped off the page to me. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, Scribner's errors? With that said, looking to a motion to approve. I think Larry, your mic is on.
Motion approved.
Thank you, sir. Jen, you want a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? 5-0.
Got it. Thank you.
Great, got it, that's done. Next amount bid, do you still have that, the piece of paper? Bingo, that's it, great. The next item is the chairman's report. I want to keep it brief. Hopefully we can get out of here by 10 o'clock, which was part of my campaign promise. The only thing I want you like the campaign promise, right?
And free soft serve ice cream, right?
I Everyone's gonna get a free ice cream at Gophers. I think Mr. Genovese has got it in there someplace. With regards to chairman's report, one thing relative to the CT Connecticut stuff, or cigarette CT, I have another meeting tomorrow, I think at 4:30. That's been going on and on. I don't really know where the legislation sits presently. Maybe you want to comment on some of that. I don't know if that's going to hit, but there has been a lot of discussion and whatnot. I had Jeremy send you guys a link today from what the New Canaan chairman did. He wrote some letter and came up with some zoning changes he wants to put forth. I don't know, Greenwich is not doing that, but Greenwich did have a meeting that Jeremy was at a couple of weeks ago with, there was CCM, is that what it was?
Westcog. There
Westcog,
was Westcog meeting, and then there was CCM meetings,
right,
numerous CCM meetings to discuss the desegregate platform. Certainly, a number of bills have been flying through the system. Not a lot of details yet, but most of the desegregate CT platform, accessory dwelling units, what are some of the others on there, have in some way, shape, or form been put through, changing the zoning enabling statutes, things like that. So these are still getting worked through. There's been some changes since what we've last seen. So for example, the limit on technical review fees, I think that's taken off the table for the time being. There's some other things that have been modified. So it's kind of a moving target. I know Fred's monitoring, I'm monitoring. Jamie Stevenson's also been working very closely on trying to figure out what's going to be proposed and in what form, because it's we've seen a lot of different proposals, and we're trying to keep an eye on it as much as we can.
but no real senator or representative of the House have attached their name to any of this stuff yet?
Senator Anwar has put together his name on many proposals.
Great.
Some of which are part of the platform.
Okay.
So he will likely be one of the people putting this forth.
Okay, so with that said, what I did over break and whatnot and started to type it up is it did a chairman's initiatives for 2020. One of the items that we talked about a bunch of times, and it relates back to this, is accessory dwelling units in houses. I want to put it on agenda so we can debate it. Where I kind of sit and to put something in you guys to think about while you're thinking about this stuff on weekends is to allow accessory dwelling units in 1 and 2 acre zoning areas of town as of right? We don't have 4 acres, only 1 and 2, right? As of right, which that would answer the question of, you know, you can put an accessory dwelling unit in your pool house. That guy that put forth an application, he wanted to put one in his house and we didn't allow him, said to knock it down, he couldn't live there. With regards to smaller sites, so that would, with regards to desegregated Connecticut, and we're kind of doing this because they're pushing us or asking us to do it, and Granite and New Canaan's doing some of the same thing. So of the things that we don't do, this is one of them. Where I sit with that is, like I just said, with 1 and 2 acre zones as of right. So I think Jim Rand lives in a 1 acre zone. He can put one in above his garage or something like that if he wanted to. It would need building department approval, but it would not necessarily come from the Planning and Zoning Commission. In smaller, let me just finish 1 second. Jim going now. In smaller sites, there are some parts in town where you may or may not be able to get this stuff in, which would be like a 1/3 acre zone or a 1/2 acre zone. I live in 1/3 acre. If somebody wanted to do it there, that in my initial reaction of it is to say that would be by special permit. So that would definitely have to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we would look at it. Jim, did you want to say something relative to that?
Yeah. Do we or can we have a reasonably succinct definition of what an accessory dwelling unit consists of? I'm thinking about 2 things. I mean, can you live in this thing? Can it have a stove? I mean, a kitchen. And I'm presuming, but I don't know, do the same setbacks govern if it's a separate?
Yes.
So it could be a little 2-bedroom cottage or something like that?
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
So your nanny could live there, your nursery school teacher could live there, your grandkids could live there. It would all be legal. They could have their own kitchen.
I didn't need a granny. I mean, I needed a granny up until my youngest got to be, I don't know, 10. But I don't need a granny now for another 5 years, hopefully. Then I'll probably need her.
Their concept is that these things are going to be rented out to somebody else, and you can make money on them. I don't know if that's the case. It's kind of in our town, but the big issue was parking. You couldn't, for argument's sake, there's a couple houses on Lower Holly Tree Ridge Road, right? There's garages there. That I think is a 1/5 acre zone area.
Near where?
Near my father-in-law, 175, 177.
Oh, just north of West Avenue.
Right, yeah. So back there, in other towns, and they say you can do street parking. In our town, we don't have street parking. And especially in a snowstorm, you can't park on the street. And a lot of times, it's not going to fit there unless someone can prove to us that you can get the parking to work. And I don't know if that's the case. The other item that's on my initiatives list is for us to look at and modify the inclusionary zoning regulation. Right now, we are 12% inclusionary. 830G is 30%, and the statewide number is 10%. I would like, and our trigger for that is anything over 4 units, whether it be 4 apartment units or whether it be 4 condos or 4 single family houses. What I would like to do is study and debate moving that number from 12% up to either 14 or 15. It's a straight math calculation. What you would end up getting is 1 more additional unit for anyone that built either a 9 or a 10 unit apartment building. So if you made, like John, if you made it 15% today, and John Vaccaro is building a 5-unit building, you're only going to get 1 because it doesn't matter because of the way the math works. Vaccaro's building now, which is International Tile, which is what I call it, is 20% affordable, right? Because he hit the trigger of 4, he has to have 4 units, he has to have 1, it ends up being 20%. So if you made that, if you made it 19%, it wouldn't matter. The trigger crosses the line at 8 or 10 dwelling units. Vaccaro's project, if you combined 1950 and 1952, or is it 1948?
Yeah.
He had 8 units combined. If it was 12%, we would only get 1 there anyway. But if the number shifted, I think you still only get 1 there, right? So that's something that we're moving. We're technically moving the goalposts, but it's also in concert with what the desegregate people would like, and also in that instance too, we might pick up 1 or 2 more affordable units here and there. To me, it's not a big thing. There's a bunch of other stuff on my list that I want to go over. One is trying to find other sites for multifamily housing and parking, but we can talk about that another day. It's now 2 minutes of 10 o'clock. We're supposed to end at 10.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make one quick comment? That, as I suspect you all know, but in case you don't know, Professor Sarah Bronin, the head of Desegregate Connecticut, will be hosted by Darien Talks Housing Thursday evening, 7 o'clock on some kind of Zoom site or whatever. I have heard her one time. My perspective, she could be somewhat incendiary, but you may be interested in her take on things then and there, and I'm sure that group would love to have you. I have no connection to the group. I'm just telling you it's available.
Yeah, I was on there once. I listened to I think their first one that they had.
Yeah, Fred and I are going to be on Thursday's call.
Okay, thank you. Good commercial. What else? That's it for me on my chairman's reports. There's nothing you have to add, right?
Nothing to add.
With regards to the subcommittee report, I know we started that thing. We dusted it off a little bit. We didn't really finish it. Do we want to speak to what that is now? Or we want to pick it up again and then really dig into it?
Yeah, I think it's, as I said, it's kind of a moving target. I've been on a number of calls with Sarah Bronin. We've given input and feedback. Some input and feedback she's been receptive to. Other input and feedback she's not been receptive to. So what's, in a way, some of the changes are helpful. And because one example for it very quickly is, we had talked about these TOD zones near train stations. And I was on a call and I said, you might not understand, but Darien, under your proposal, would be affected by 6 train stations. And I mentioned this to the subcommittee because even stations in New Canaan and Stamford would affect us. And to her credit, Ms. Bronin said, yeah, that's not really what we intended. Why don't we modify it? So now, instead of having to be automatically rezoned within all those stations, the town would only have to choose one station, and in lieu of that, they could choose something else. So certainly there have been proposals like that that have changed.
What about the bus stops?
Bus stops don't count. That was a specific question that was asked, and they said bus stops do not count.
Did they ever count?
No, we want an interpretation on that.
Right, okay.
So I can certainly circle back to the subcommittee once I get more definitive details on some of these proposals.
Okay, that'd be great. That's it for the subcommittee, right? And I'm looking at, 10:01, damn. Next upcoming meeting is February 9th, and that is BMW.
BMW, and then we're not gonna meet on the 16th.
We're not gonna be on the 16th, so that's out. And then what's the meeting after the 16th?
23rd of February.
Feb 23rd. Feb 23rd. All right. Did I miss anything? Are we looking for a motion to adjourn? There's a motion to adjourn right there from Jim Rand. There's a second. All's in favor. Thanks, everybody. The meeting is adjourned. 10:01. Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Good night.